European foreign ministers have been meeting with their Iranian counterpart, Abbas Araghchi, in Geneva today in the hope of easing tensions between Iran and Israel. It's the first face-to-face talks between Tehran and Western governments since Israel attacked Iran a week ago. Britain, France, Germany, and the EU's top diplomats are taking part. It follows President Trump's announcement that he would put off any decision on U.S. military intervention in Iran for 2 weeks. Correspondents say there is an opportunity here for the Europeans to mediate some kind of deal and act as guarantor. They can then take that deal to President Trump in the hope of turning his 2-week deadline into something much longer.
We were supposed to meet with Americans on 15 June to craft a very promising agreement for peaceful resolution of the issues fabricated over our peaceful nuclear program. It was a betrayal of diplomacy and an unprecedented blow to the foundation of international law and UN system.
We have achieved extraordinary success thus far, but there is still much work to be done to destroy the nuclear weapons program and ballistic arsenals and neutralize the threat. We are operating in the name of regional stability and global security, and we expect the international community to be clear and steadfast in support of removing the imminent existential threat against Israel.
Well, for more on these stories, I'm joined now on the line from London by the international affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Dr. Laskiewicz, thank you for joining us. He is there, I hope, because I can't see him. There he is. Let's start with the latest attacks. More Iranian missiles getting through to Israel. Is there a degree of surprise about the number of missiles getting past that Iron Dome system, because the expectation seems to have built up that Israel's air defense systems are almost impenetrable?
Quite right. This is the surprise in all this, rather like the surprise Russia had when Ukraine suddenly struck deep in its territory. And the Israelis, who have so far operated with impunity against everybody else, now have the unwelcome news that their Iron Dome has 2 problems. First, was some missiles, notably hypersonic, can get through. And secondly, there is limited resources in Israel, and it's already calling upon the Americans to help shoot down missiles. And whatever the bravado in Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech, without the Americans, there is no way they can finish the job, because only the Americans have a bunker buster.
Good point, because in terms of the air defenses that Israel has, we understand that they actually become depleted at some point, and Israel will need to stock up its supplies if it's to keep up the air defense.
Quite right. USA is its arsenal, and unless USA delivers more munitions, put it bluntly, then Israel will have a great deal of problems. This is, in fact, a similar situation with Ukraine. It's precisely the same, where a larger enemy, which has in theory got more resources for a war of attrition, can carry on, whereas Israel, like Ukraine, needs supplies. And therefore, yet again, not only the decision whether to come into this war or not rests in Donald Trump's hands, even letting Israel continue the war rests in his hands. America is that important here as well.
And is there a mood in Israel among the people there for a diplomatic solution to this conflict? Or are there more strong sort of hardline voices calling for this to continue and to escalate?
Well, what's happened is that the moment the war started and Iran fought back, all the voices against Netanyahu seem to have subsided. Not only in Gaza does the killing go on and no one now protests in Israel, but about Iran, the nations rallied around Netanyahu. There's not even any criticism of a surprise attack, which is technically an aggressive act, nothing. So therefore, the voices are that of Netanyahu, of going for total military degradation of nuclear facilities by Iran, and also ideally, although this is, I think, impossible, a regime change, and in general, finally, a peace treaty, if there is one, absolutely in Israel's interests. And as far as I can tell, there are no dissenting voices.
And in terms of tangible international diplomatic efforts, EU foreign ministers, including the UK, have been meeting their Iranian counterparts in Geneva. I mean, how significant are those talks, and what's the most that can come out of them in your assessment?
Well, there's two aspects to note about them. First of all, there's now called an E3. This is Great Britain, France, and Germany. And these are regarded as, if you like, the key to the whole European mission. And therefore, the other, if you like, as the implication here is tiddly states don't really matter. So first of all, it's the E3 which are important. Secondly, what Iran has decided is that instead of going via Russia, they want to go via to the EU to present Donald Trump with their version of a fair peace treaty. Well, it is unfortunately no longer the case that Great Britain apart, that the EU has any leverage with the USA, or for that matter, any great influence. And so therefore, this is an exercise which is useful. Something may emerge out of it. But to be quite honest, per se, it will achieve nothing. It all hinges on Donald Trump and the particular difficult situation he finds himself in.
And we understand that these discussions will come down to percentages of uranium enrichment, not to what we've been hearing from Donald Trump, calling for the unconditional surrender of the Iranian regime. Is that what you're hearing?
Yes, quite right. What is happening is that Europe sees a middle way. Israel sees no middle way. It's hearing that any sort of enrichment at all is impossible because, as they put it, not without reason, of course, please note, that even if they give 3% enrichment possibility, before they know what's what, they're up to 60%, the Iranians. So there's a credibility gap in Israeli eyes. As for the Americans, Donald Trump has gone one step further and demanded unconditional surrender, which, to be quite honest, was of dubious value in World War II because it helped prolong the war. And the same problem is here, though in his case, as far as I can tell, it's a negotiating ploy. But it does mean that anything that Europe here devises, whatever percentage they come down to, is of no interest either to Israel or America, as far as we can tell.
And from an American perspective, we're seeing a lot of pushback from many Trump supporters and also obviously Democrats. I mean, they're saying that Israel has started a war that it wants the US to finish. What would be the consequences if Mr. Trump defied all that?
Well, right now in America, there's a very interesting situation. There are no fewer than 4 points to note. If President Donald Trump backs out again, there'll be a taco president and you lose even more credibility, arguably to the point that people just won't take him seriously. B, on the other hand, if he does go into this war, and incidentally, the bunker buster of itself is unlikely to win because right now the Revolutionary Guard is technically in power. Please note, it's a minor change that has happened, has not really gone much notice in the West, but the Revolutionary Guard is ready that even were the leader to be assassinated, as has happened to other leaders, notably in Hamas, then the regime would carry on. And therefore, sooner or later, we arrive at 3, the possibility that he would either face a forever war or might even contemplate nuclear, which is, there's some whispers of it's not being ruled out of the possibilities. And in my book, incidentally, I thought it's quite possible that some situation may force America, or rather, how they will want to go nuclear, or will go nuclear. And number 4, and here comes the killer for Donald Trump, the internal opposition. He was elected on an isolationist ticket, in effect. So when people complained about his Ukraine deals, actually many Americans welcomed them. The notion of concentrating, incidentally, on China is by no means a wrong one. Please note, recently a British ship went somewhere or other there, and suddenly all hell broke loose with China sending many, many planes over to show their displeasure. So there is another prospect of a problem brewing over there. And so therefore, in this respect, Donald Trump finds himself in a quandary, but he has done a very smart move, which Americans like smart moves, and he's done a very good one. He's postponed everything for 2 weeks. Hopefully it will clear out by that time. I think also the reason why he was interested in going in with the Israelis at all is because Israeli made that superb first day, militarily speaking, and he wants to be with a winner. His problem is, can he develop the knockout blow? Because if he can't, it's a forever war.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Laskiewicz. Dr. Marek Laskiewicz is the International Affairs Analyst who was talking to me on the line from London.